It's fairly common knowledge that by all known metrics, Papua New Guinea is the most linguistically diverse country in the world. Not only does it have the highest number of languages spoken there, but unlike the other countries at the top of the list of most languages, which have hundreds of millions or even a billion people living there, Papua New Guinea has a comparatively tiny population, cementing it as having far more languages per capita. On the other hand, hardly anyone ever asks what the least linguistically diverse country is. But how do we figure that out? The most commonly accepted method of determining the level of linguistic diversity within a country or region is the aptly named Linguistic Diversity Index, or LDI for short. The way it's calculated is by finding the likelihood that two randomly selected people within a country share the same native language. The LDI is measured on a scale from 1 to 0, with an index of 1 meaning that no two people share the same mother tongue, and an index of 0 meaning that everyone shares the same mother tongue. You might be asking why the Linguistic Diversity Index is based on differing mother tongues, instead of doing something like taking the population of a country and dividing it by the number of languages spoken there. The main reason is because the LDI's method is much better at capturing the distribution of the speaking population for each language. Let's say we have country A and country B. Both countries have about the same population, but 25 languages are spoken in country A, while only 10 are spoken in country B. It may seem logical to assume country A has more languages and therefore more diversity, but if we reveal that 76% of the population speaks the predominant language natively, while all the other 24 languages are spoken by 1% of the population each, it appears far less diverse. Meanwhile, country B's 10 languages are each spoken by exactly 10% of its population, and as a result of the spread, is much more linguistically diverse. The Linguistic Diversity Index does not take into consideration second or third languages, however, meaning that regional or national lingua francas hardly affect the index. The number of languages being spoken in a given country is also a point of contention. Do you count a language that's spoken by only a few people or even a single person who moved from another country? There's also the conundrum of what counts as a dialect and what to count as its own separate language, which is a whole other can of worms. Different organizations can do their own calculations of the Linguistic Diversity Index at different times, but I'll be referencing the Ethnologue LDI Index for this video. With that long preamble out of the way, let's go over the most linguistically diverse countries in the world before making our way down to the least linguistically diverse countries. Papua New Guinea is unsurprisingly number 1 on the Ethnologue LDI, with an index of 0.988. Meaning that there's a 98.8% chance that two randomly selected people in Papua New Guinea won't have a native language in common. It is the most linguistically diverse country in Oceania, as well as both the eastern and southern hemispheres. Of course, it has Tok Pisin as a lingua franca, but there are still large portions of the population that don't speak it. Number 2 on the index is a nearby island nation, Vanuatu. It's ranked number 21 in the number of languages spoken there with 111, but has a significantly smaller population than those surrounding it on the list, surpassing them with an index of 0.972. The Solomon Islands are close behind in third, with an index of 0.968, and are 41st in the total number of languages spoken there. Vanuatu and the Solomon Islands have Creoles to unite their linguistically diverse populations, with Bisalama and Pidgin respectively, which are both related to Tok Pisin. Number 4 is the Central African Republic, the most linguistically diverse country in Africa, as well as the Northern Hemisphere. Do note that Africa absolutely dominates the top of the list, as evidenced by the fact that African countries make up the rest of the top 10 in the LDI, with Cameroon in 5th place, as well as having the 9th highest total number of languages spoken there. Chad is in 6th place in the LDI, followed by Tanzania at number 7, Benin at number 8, and South Sudan at number 9. Uganda rounds out the top 10, as well as being the most linguistically diverse country located on the equator. Liberia barely misses out on the top 10, though it does have the highest linguistic diversity out of any country in the Western Hemisphere. These African countries have English and/or French as their official languages, but typically a majority of the population doesn't speak them. From this point onwards, I won't be discussing the Linguistic Diversity Index rank of every single country on the list, instead touching on the ones that are significant in one way or another. Just know that African countries continue to make up the majority of entries towards the top. India comes out at 15th place, the most linguistically diverse country in Asia, with an index of 0.9, marking the last country where the chances of two randomly selected people sharing a native language are 10% or less. India has the 4th highest number of languages spoken there, with 22 of them serving as scheduled languages that act as lingua francas in regions varying in size and population, one of which is Hindi, which serves as a national lingua franca alongside English. But while Hindi serves this role, there are many varieties of Hindi that are sometimes considered their own languages, forming the Hindi belt. Nigeria is 18th in the LDI and has the 3rd highest number of languages spoken there. The LDI score is brought down by the large portions of the country that speak Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo, but there's still more than enough diversity to warrant using English as a language of business, in Nigerian Pidgin, for informal communication between ethnic groups. South Africa wraps up the top 20 with an index of 0.876. It has the 2nd highest number of official spoken languages at 11, with Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, and English being the most spoken. Number 21 is the United Arab Emirates, the most diverse country in the Middle East and the 2nd most in Asia as a whole. This is caused by the sheer number of immigrants from South and Southeast Asia, who make up well above 85% of the population and heavily outnumber native Arabic speakers. It's a similar story in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman, which are all further down on the list. The Philippines are number 28 in Ethnologue's Linguistic Diversity Index, with the 13th most languages spoken, and are followed by Indonesia at number 29. Indonesia has the 2nd highest number of languages spoken there, only behind Papua New Guinea, but is further down because of the sheer proportion of the population that speaks Javanese natively. Indonesian, or Bahasa Indonesia, is a lingua franca spoken by the majority of the country and is spoken natively by many people in urban areas, particularly when 2 people who speak different languages natively but both know Indonesian have children and only communicate in Indonesian, leading to their children picking up Bahasa Indonesia instead of the 2 other languages. Malaysia is close behind at number 31, with a mix of Malay, Chinese, Tamil, and various indigenous languages spoken there. It's a similar story in Singapore at number 33, the most linguistically diverse city-state. Suriname takes 37th place, being the most linguistically diverse country in South America and the Americas as a whole. The lingua franca is Srenan Tongo, an English Creole, but a slight majority of the country speaks Dutch natively, and people of Indian or Javanese descent in Suriname speak Caribbean Hindustani and Javanese respectively. New Caledonia is the most linguistically diverse dependent territory with an LDI of 0.801, followed closely behind by Guam. Thailand is the most linguistically diverse country in mainland East Asia, as while Central Thai serves as a lingua franca, other southwestern Thai languages are spoken natively in various parts of the country, in addition to Malay in the far south. Iraq is 48th in the Ethnologue LDI, with its population split primarily between Arabic dialects and Kurdish natively, and marks the last country before the LDI drops below 0.75. Monaco takes 51st place, is the most linguistically diverse country in Europe, and the most diverse microstate. French is the primary language, however Monegasque is also spoken, which is a variety of Ligurian native to the country, and Italian and English are spoken natively by sizable chunks of the population as well. The Federated States of Micronesia are 53rd, the 4th most linguistically diverse country in Oceania, and the 1st since the top 3 overall. English is the national language, but much of the population speaks Chuukese, Pohnpeian, or other Micronesian languages natively. Belgium claims the very next spot as the most linguistically diverse non-city state in Europe, with about half of the population speaking Dutch natively and the other half speaking French natively, or Flemish and Walloon if you want to be precise. Belize is further down at 56th on the LDI, and is the most linguistically diverse country in North America, with a mix of English, Spanish, Belizean Creole, and a few indigenous languages being spoken there. Switzerland is the 3rd most linguistically diverse country in Europe. It isn't higher due to the percentage of the German-speaking population being higher than the French and Italian portions. Luxembourg is close behind at 60th, with Luxembourgish, French, German, Portuguese, and English all spoken there, and is followed immediately by Montenegro as the surprise 5th most linguistically diverse country in Europe. This is primarily because of the split between Serbian and Montenegrin, and its rank on the Linguistic Diversity Index would fall greatly if Serbo-Croatian was counted as one language. Canada is the 66th most linguistically diverse country, the most diverse with territory in the Arctic Circle, and has the 11th highest number of languages spoken overall. It's the most linguistically diverse Anglophone settler colony, primarily because of the relatively high immigrant population and because of the existence of Quebec. While the indigenous languages bolster the total language count, they unfortunately don't have many speakers individually because of centuries of genocide, kidnapping indigenous children from their parents, and forcing them into schools designed to eradicate all semblance of indigenous culture and language within them. Zimbabwe is further down at 71st place in the LDI, which I'm mentioning purely because it has the highest number of official languages. China is the 81st most linguistically diverse, is number 7 in the number of languages spoken there, and has the highest population within a country that shares a single language, that being Mandarin Chinese. While most of the population speaks a Sinitic language natively, the variety of Chinese spoken natively from place to place varies a lot, both within and between dialect groups. There are also various other minority languages spoken by millions of people in China. Italy comes out at 86th, being the most diverse big country in Europe. This is because of all the various dialects of Romance languages spoken natively across the country, in addition to Standard Italian. It's also the last country with an LDI above 0.5, meaning that for the remaining countries, 2 randomly selected people are more likely to share a native language than not. Guatemala is ranked 100 on the Linguistic Diversity Index, since while a majority of the country speaks Spanish, there are plenty of indigenous languages spoken natively by large portions of the population. Close behind is Australia at 103rd, and is 6th place with regards to the amount of languages spoken there, thanks to all the Aboriginal languages present.
Angamuti jongon chimpale chan butati autim en kukuyau. Inum te patikim bewum yupangati lutigan utalnganu. Mutimbre umpilakan winda weekend kukuyin nitir. Pakan lama lama kunjenya dakan amora like Mary Yimir. Kukuyani umpindam mutayora yeryoran koko peragalo kawoya. Koko wara kuko mini kukuyalan chimotamoyan kalalakoya.
Unfortunately, Australia has a similar history of English settlers committing absolute atrocities towards its indigenous peoples, resulting in Aboriginal languages having only a few thousand speakers at most, and with many of them on the brink of extinction. Most of the linguistic diversity in Australia today comes from the large immigrant population speaking other languages natively. The US is in 111th place with the LDI, and has the 5th highest number of languages spoken overall. It's of course the poster child for the genocide and erasure of indigenous language and culture, while also having the highest population of immigrants in the entire world, its main source of linguistic diversity, as naturalized Americans are notorious for speaking English and nothing else. At this point, I'll be skipping through a lot of ranks. Most countries around here are ones where one language dominates, though significant parts of the country speak other languages natively. Vietnam at 133rd marks the last country before the LDI falls below 0.25, meaning at that point there's a 75% chance or greater that 2 randomly selected people share a common native language. Mexico is the 164th most linguistically diverse country, and 8th in the number of languages spoken there. While a decent proportion of the population speaks indigenous languages, the vast majority speak Spanish and pretty much only Spanish. Grenada is 169th, and is the last country with an LDI of 0.1 or above. Brazil is lower at number 174, and number 10 in the amount of total languages spoken. Portuguese absolutely dominates there, and many of the indigenous languages are on the brink of extinction. There are sizable portions of the population that speak other European languages natively, but they aren't enough to save its ranking on the Linguistic Diversity Index from being so low. Going further down, we reach the bottom 10, the least linguistically diverse countries in the entire world. Number 10 is Colombia, with a Linguistic Diversity Index of 0.027, meaning that there's a 97.3% chance that 2 randomly selected Colombians share the same native language, in this case most likely Spanish, as it is the majority language of the entire country, with various indigenous languages being spoken by small parts of the population. The 9th least linguistically diverse country is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, otherwise known as North Korea, with an LDI of 0.024. This makes sense as Korean is the language of the vast majority of the population, and immigrating over there is fairly difficult. It's worth noting that there's still a good amount of dialectal variation within Korean throughout the peninsula. The 187th most linguistically diverse country is Tonga, where the vast majority speak Tongan, yielding an LDI of 0.023, followed by Tuvalu, where the majority speak Tuvaluan, and the LDI is 0.02, making it the least linguistically diverse in Oceania. the least linguistically diverse country in Africa, the Southern Hemisphere, and the 6th least overall is Burundi, where the vast majority speaks Kirundi, contributing to its LDI score of 0.019. Crossing the border from Tanzania into Burundi may represent the biggest decrease in the amount of linguistic diversity anywhere in the world. The 5th least linguistically diverse country is Cuba, with an LDI of 0.17. The vast majority of the population speaks purely Spanish, but there is a minority of Haitian descent that speaks Haitian Creole. The 2 languages indigenous to the island, those being Taino and Guanahatabey, have both been extinct for centuries. El Salvador is the 191st most and 4th least linguistically diverse country. Again, the vast majority of the population speaks Spanish, with Arabic being spoken among some Palestinian Salvadorans. There are just 2 indigenous languages left, those being Pipil with a few hundred speakers, and Salvadorian Lenca on the brink of extinction. El Salvador's LDI is just 0.14. Reaching the podium, the 3rd least linguistically diverse country is the Maldives, where virtually everyone speaks Diwahi natively, and many learn English as a second language. With a linguistic diversity index of 0.13, it is the least linguistically diverse in Asia. Coming in at number 2 is Haiti, with an LDI of 0.11, meaning that there's a 98.9% chance that 2 randomly selected Haitians will share a native language, making it the least linguistically diverse country in the Western Hemisphere and both the Americas. Haitian Creole is the native language of virtually everyone in Haiti, though about 40% of the population also speaks French, which is used in formal contexts and shares official status with Haitian Creole, making it so that despite not being very diverse with regards to native speakers, Haiti has 2 official languages, more than some countries with a lot more linguistic diversity. And now, to finally answer the second half of this video's title, the very least linguistically diverse country in the entire world is Vatican City, with its linguistic diversity index coming out at a whopping 0, implying every single citizen of the Vatican has Italian as a native language. Now, this is definitely debatable, as the residents of Vatican City must be born outside of its walls, and even Pope Francis was born in Argentina. But this is just what Ethnologue's Linguistic Diversity Index says. The Swiss Guard speaks Swiss German, and Latin is used for ceremonial purposes, but as in the rest of the world, it isn't spoken natively. There are 4 dependencies out there that also have an LDI of 0, those being the British Indian Ocean Territory, Falkland Islands, St. Helena, and St. Pierre and Miquelon. Of course, Vatican City isn't a member of the UN, leaving Haiti as the least linguistically diverse UN state according to Ethnologue, although the presence of both Haitian Creole and French makes calling it the very least diverse a bit dubious. So you can make an argument for the Maldives, El Salvador, or Cuba being the least diverse instead. But no matter what, no matter where you go in the world, you can expect to see at least a sliver of linguistic diversity, and that's pretty cool. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to LingoLizard. Special thanks to my patrons, namely Furoist, Dope Kid, Omeyer, Rosetta Stephens, Sunder, Erica Sim, Adam Drinek, Junior Kwon, and Teo Tamara. Consider pledging on Patreon to support me, and until next time, goodbye!